The island of Sodor is surrounded by beautiful blue sea. It has fields of green and sandy yellow beaches. There are rivers, streams and lots of trees where the birds sing. There are windmills and a coal mine and docks where visitors to the island arrive. The island also has lots and lots of railway lines. Who's that puffing down the track? It's Thomas. Hello, Thomas.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Island of Sodor.
Rosie's Funfair Special. Rosie is a lively little tank engine. She is very quick. She also likes to be very busy. Any job is a good job for Rosie. One day, Rosie and Emily were at Knapford Station. The fat controller had some important news. The Funfair train is waiting at Brendam Docks. Rosie was excited. She hoped the fat controller would ask her to pull the Funfair train. Emily, you must pull the Funfair Special. Rosie was disappointed. Rosie, you must be Emily's back engine. Rosie didn't want to be the back engine. She wanted to pull the Funfair Special on her own. I have a lot to do today. After we pull the Funfair Special, I have to collect milk from High Farm. Rosie puffed sadly along. She wished she could pull the special on her own. Then Rosie had an idea. If she arrived at the docks before Emily, she could take the Funfair Special. Then Emily could puff straight to Hill Farm. That would really help Emily. So Rosie raced off as fast as her pistons would pump. Rosie puffed alongside the Funfair Special. This is a very long train. Rosie couldn't see that Emily was already coupled up and waiting for Rosie. Rosie quickly coupled up to the Funfair Special. Emily will be pleased, she thought. Still, Rosie didn't know that Emily was on the other end of the train. Then there was trouble. Rosie huffed and puffed. She heaved and hauled. The couplings groaned and strained until one of them snapped. Hooray! I'm pulling the Funfair Special! But Rosie had left half of it behind with Emily. Rosie puffed proudly along. The children were very excited to see Rosie pulling the Funfair Special. That made Rosie happy. Then there was trouble. Another coupling snapped. Up ahead, Bertie was carrying children to the funfair. Rosie chuffed by. Bertie started to toot his horn. He's tooting at my Funfair Special, thought Rosie. But Bertie was tooting because the coconut truck was rolling toward the level crossing. It smashed against the gate. Coconuts rolled everywhere. The level crossing was blocked, but Rosie didn't know. She puffed happily on. Then another coupling snapped. Rosie passed Stepney in a siding. Stepney was waiting to puff onto the main line. The points changed. Stepney blew his whistle loudly. He's whistling at my Funfair Special, thought Rosie proudly. But Stepney was whistling because the truck of sugar was now rolling towards him. Stepney was covered in pink sugar from funnel to footplate. But Rosie didn't know. She puffed proudly on. Rosie steamed up Gordon's Hill. Another coupling snapped. She heard an engine's whistle. They're whistling at my Funfair Special too, Rosie thought happily. But it was Emily with the rest of the Funfair trucks. Rosie's flatbed was now rolling back towards Emily. It bashed bumped into Emily, seats from the big wheel clattered and clanged all over the tracks. Emily was stuck. Rosie chuffed cheerfully into Maithwaite Station. Nobody waved or whistled. The Fat Controller was cross. "I told you to be Emily's back engine." "But I brought the Funfair Special all on my own, sir. I wanted to help Emily." "You haven't helped anyone. You have caused confusion and delay. You've left half the train. Now there will be no funfair for the children." Rosie felt terrible. She had wanted everyone to be proud of her, and now they were cross. "Please, sir, I know just what to do. I'm a very quick engine. I can collect all the trucks. Then I'll be Emily's back engine, and we will deliver the Funfair Special in time." So Rosie whooshed off as fast as her wheels would wear. First, Rosie collected Rocky. Then she pulled them as quickly as she could to Emily. Emily's tracks were still blocked. "I'm so sorry, Emily. I only wanted to help you. Rocky will clear the line. I will collect the other trucks. Then we can deliver the Funfair Special together." "Thank you, Rosie." Rosie left Rocky and she raced away to collect the first truck. She picked up the coconut truck. Then Rosie collected a new truck of sugar and she raced back to Emily. Rosie had been very quick. Rocky had just loaded the seats back onto the flatbed. "I'm ready to be your back engine now." And together they set off up Gordon's Hill. Rosie and Emily arrived at Maithwaite. All the children waved at the two engines. "We have delivered the Funfair Special in time." That evening, Rosie and Emily watched the children at the funfair. The children were having a wonderful time. "I hope we can work together on another special. The sooner the better. Working with you is best of all." Rosie couldn't have felt happier. The island of Sodor is surrounded by beautiful blue sea. It has fields of green and sandy yellow beaches. There are rivers, streams and lots of trees where the birds sing. There are windmills and a coal mine and docks where visitors to the island arrive. The island also has lots and lots of railway lines. Who's that puffing down the track? It's Thomas. Hello, Thomas. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Island of Sodor. Steady Eddie. Edward is one of the oldest engines on the Island of Sodor. Edward may not always be the fastest engine, but he certainly is the steadiest. And for the Fat Controller, a steady engine is a really useful engine. One morning, Edward puffed into the docks. Good morning. Then the Fat Controller arrived. The brand new brass water wheel has just arrived from the mainland. It is magnificent. It'll be displayed by the waterworks at Great Waterton. Emily, Gordon and Edward were very excited. They couldn't wait to see the magnificent water wheel. Edward, you will deliver the water wheel to Great Waterton. Edward beamed from buffer to boiler. Gordon and Emily were surprised. I've chosen you, Edward, because you are the steadiest engine. You are to take the express line. It is the smoothest and most direct way to Great Waterton. Gordon gasped. Edward was to use his express line. Cranky lowered the water wheel onto Edward's flatbed. It had a shiny brass rim that shone in the sun. Everyone looked at the magnificent water wheel. Edward the Steady is at the ready. And very slowly, Edward pushed his special out of the docks. Edward puffed up to the junction for the express line. Thomas was waiting. Bust my buffers, Edward! That's a very special. Edward was very happy. He looked ahead. If he took the express line, he couldn't stop for people to admire his magnificent water wheel. But if he took the other track, he could stop at stations and bridges and sidings. A lot of people would see his special. The signal changed. Edward didn't take the express line. Edward was having a wonderful time. He went past stations, under bridges, and past farms. Everyone cheered and waved. Edward the Steady was now Edward the Magnificent. Edward arrived at the junction. The track ahead is in need of repair. But the track ahead led to the school. Edward wanted the school children to see him, so he chuffed on towards the broken track. The track was very bumpy and jumpy. The shiny brass edge of the wheel started to cut into the ropes. But Edward didn't know. At the school, children cheered and waved. Edward wasn't looking at the red signal. Flatten my fender! Edward applied his brakes, but too late. The shiny brass edge of the water wheel cut even deeper through the ropes. Edward knew now that his long journey had made him late. Then he had an idea. I will chuff up Gordon's Hill, Edward thought. It's the fastest way to Great Waterton. And, he huffed to himself, the other engines on the hill will all see my special. Edward chuffed and huffed up Gordon's Hill. Oliver and Arthur passed him coming down. They both thought his special was magnificent. But the water wheel was very heavy. Edward huffed and puffed up the hill. At last, he reached the top. But the edges of the water wheel were cutting deeper and deeper into the ropes. Then there was trouble. With a final jolt, the ropes broke. The magnificent water wheel rolled off Edward's flatbed. For fizzling fireboxes! Gordon was further down the hill with flatbeds of scrap iron. The water wheel rolled down the hill. It bounced onto Gordon's flatbed. Now Edward's magnificent water wheel was on its way to the smelters. Edward had to get to the smelter's yard before Gordon. Edward puffed and Edward panted along every shortcut he knew. No one saw Edward pass, and no one stopped to wave. That no longer mattered to Edward. He had to save his magnificent water wheel from the smelters. Gordon puffed slowly into the smelter's yard. He pulled up outside the smelting shed. Then suddenly, there was Edward. Gordon was surprised. Edward the Steady had won his race against the fastest engine on Sodor. The magnificent water wheel was once again tied down to Edward's flatbed.
Edward the Steady, once more at the ready.
And his wheels clickety-clacked without a crunch or a crack, or a cheer or a clap along the way. The water wheel was put into place. It looks grand. It looks magnificent. And Edward didn't need anyone else to tell him that his had been a very special. Heave Ho Thomas. Thomas is a busy and cheery engine as he puffs and huffs across the island. He always toots hello to other engines and to children along the way, even when Thomas is pulling heavy loads. One morning, Thomas puffed into Brendam Docks. The fat controller was waiting. You are all here to welcome the new engine. His name is Hank.
I've heard he's very special.
I've heard he's very strong. Hank puffed into the docks. Hank was very special. He had red wheels and a bright red cowcatcher, and he was very tall. The engines had never seen an engine like Hank before. Hank looks as strong as a giant. I'm sure he isn't stronger than a Sodor engine. Now, Thomas, I have 3 jobs for you. First, you must take new machines from the docks to the factory. Then you are to pick up stone from the quarry and deliver it to the shunting yard. And lastly, you must pick up an old tractor from Farmer McCall's and take it to the repair yard.
Yes, sir.
And you must take Hank with you. Hank must see the important sights of Sodor. Be back by tea time for Hank's welcome party at Knapford. Thomas buffered up to the machine trucks. Hank chuffed alongside.
Hello.
Howdy, Thomas. Now you look like one of the finest little engines I've ever seen. Thomas didn't like being called little. I'm a tank engine. Thomas thought Hank was being cheeky. Those trucks are way too heavy for you. Let me take them for you. Hank meant to be helpful, but it made Thomas cross.
No, thank you. I'm strong enough to pull much heavier loads than this.
I'd be happy to help. But Thomas was already puffing out of the docks. At the signal, Thomas didn't take the track to the factory. He chuffed straight to the quarry. Thomas pulled ahead. I may not be grand and I may not be long, but I will show Hank that I'm stronger than strong, he huffed to himself. Thomas and Hank puffed into the quarry.
Now I'm going to pick up the stone trucks.
Hank was surprised. Hold your huffing there, Thomas. Let big old Hank take those trucks for you.
No, thank you. Tank engines can pull very heavy loads.
So Thomas heaved and huffed out of the quarry. Thomas wheezed and wheeshed. Handsome Hank gleamed and glowed by his side. Children waved from bridges.
Hello, Thomas.
Howdy, good to see you. Hey, Thomas, aren't you going to whistle hello? Thomas hadn't the puff to whistle hello. Hank had plenty of puff. This made Thomas feel even crosser. Thomas pulled up to the halt. He was nearly out of puff.
Hello, Farmer McCall. This is Hank. He's the new engine on Sodor.
Howdy, Farmer McCall. That's a mighty fine tractor you have. Say, Thomas, you look all out of puff and pull. I'll take it for you. No, thank you. And the tractor was coupled up to the end of Thomas's trucks. Thomas huffed and he puffed. His wheels spun and spun. Come on, Thomas. The train is too heavy for you. Take the pressure off your pistons. Couple me up. But Thomas was determined to pull the train on his own.
We must not be late for your party.
Wheel turn by wheel turn, Thomas puffed away. Thomas and Hank arrived at Maron Station. Visitors waved at Thomas. Thomas wanted to whistle back, but he hadn't any spare steam. Howdy, everybody. Thomas is overloaded right now. I'll whistle for him. Hank had lots of steam, and Hank blew the longest and loudest whistle. Then there was trouble. Thomas had cracked a cylinder. The train was much too heavy.
Oh no, now the deliveries won't be made. You won't be back in time for your welcome party, and I'm not a really useful engine, or even a really strong one. Shucks, Thomas, I'm so sorry. That's too bad. I wanted to show you I wasn't just a fine little steam engine. I wanted to show you I was really strong. So, I didn't want to ask for your help. But I do now. Please, Hank.
I'd be happy to help. You give the orders, I'll do the pushing. Hank and Thomas dropped off Farmer McColl's tractor. The workmen were very sorry to see Thomas had broken down. Next, Hank and Thomas chuffed into the shunting yards. The yard manager was waiting. The stone trucks were uncoupled. I hope you're back on track soon, Thomas. Finally, Thomas and Hank delivered the new machines to the factory. Thank you, Thomas. Hank pushed Thomas back to Knapford Station. They arrived just in time for the party. Thank you, Hank. Now all of Sodor knows what a strong engine you are. Hank smiled. And I know something too. You're the engine. Everyone cheers for on Sodor. That's something to be proud of. Thomas smiled. Hank was very special. He was a very special new friend. Thomas puts the brakes on. It was a busy time on the Island of Sodor. The Sodor River Bridge was being rebuilt. Thomas had been chosen to help the builders. He was very busy and very proud. Thomas was at the yards. He was excited. This is the last delivery. Then the bridge will be finished. Thomas, you must be careful with these blocks. They were made especially for the bridge. There are no more like them anywhere.
Yes, sir.
And Thomas chuffed carefully out of the yard. Thomas had to stop at a signal, but when he applied his brakes, he heard a squeaking sound. Thomas was worried. Stanley was there. He was taking builders to the bridge. Hello, Thomas. Your brakes don't sound good. Shall I take your load for you? No, thank you. I don't need any help. And Thomas chuffed quickly away. Next, Thomas saw Emily. Slow down, Thomas. There's a sharp bend ahead. Thomas applied his brakes. The squeak was much louder, and his brakes wouldn't work properly. He raced round a bend much too fast. Thomas's wheels hit a bump in the track. Some of the special blocks bounced off his flatbed. But Thomas didn't know. He was worried about his squeaking brakes. I know, he thought. I'll puff more slowly. Thomas arrived at the top of a steep hill. As he went downhill, Thomas started to roll faster. Thomas applied his brakes, but they still weren't working properly, and the squeak was even louder. Gordon was puffing up the hill. "Slow down, Thomas." But Thomas couldn't slow down. He raced into an emergency siding and he hit the buffers with a big bump. More of the special blocks bounced off his flatbed down a steep bank. Now there was only one stack left. But Thomas still didn't notice. He was still worried about his squeaking brakes. Thomas set off once more, very slowly, for the bridge. Finally, Thomas saw the Sodor River Bridge ahead. The builders were waiting. "Hooray! I've made it! Here I come with the last special delivery!" Thomas knew he had to slow down now, but he couldn't. Thomas's brakes had stopped working altogether. "Fizzling fireboxes! What can I do?" With a clang and a crash, Thomas clanked off the rails. His flatbed bashed his buffers with a bump. The last of the special blocks fell from his flatbed into the water. "Cinders and ashes! I've lost some of the special blocks." "No, Thomas, you've lost them all. Now the bridge can't be finished." "Oh no, this is a disaster." The workmen attached chains to Stanley and Thomas. Slowly, Stanley pulled Thomas back to safety. Thomas was upset. "How did I lose the blocks?" he huffed to himself. Thomas remembered the bump on the bridge. It had made the last blocks fall from his flatbed. "Maybe the other blocks fell when I hit the other bumps," he thought. Thomas remembered where he had hit the buffers. Then he remembered going over the very bumpy track. Thomas knew what he had to do. "Stanley, will you help me, please?" "Of course, Thomas. If you shunt me back along the track to the yard, I can show you where the other special blocks fell off." "That's a very good idea." "We must take Rocky with us. He can load the blocks onto your flatbed. Then you can bring them back to finish the bridge." Soon Stanley was chuffing along. He shunted Thomas behind him. And Murdoch shunted Rocky. They reached the bottom of the steep hill. "This is where I bashed the buffers with a bump." "Hooray! There they are!" Soon, Rocky had lifted the blocks onto Stanley's flatbed, and they all puffed on. Thomas and Stanley found the rest of the special blocks at the sharp bend, and Rocky set to work. Soon, Stanley shunted Thomas back into the yard, and he set off proudly with the special blocks. "Good luck, Stanley. I was silly not to have asked for your help. Thank you." A worker looked at Thomas's wheels. "I've come to have my brakes fixed. They make a terrible squeak." Later that day, Thomas chuffed back to the Sodor River Bridge. Thomas put his brakes on. There was no squeak at all. He stopped right beside Stanley. "My brakes are fixed now." "So is the Sodor River Bridge." "All thanks to my friend, Stanley." It's Thomas. Hello, Thomas. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Island of Sodor. Tram Trouble. Thomas the tank engine and Toby the steam tram are very good friends. Toby always tells Thomas when he's worried, and Thomas is always happy to help Toby. One bright morning, Thomas puffed into Arlesdale End. "Hello, Toby. You look happy. The Fat Controller has asked me to lead the parade at the first Great Waterton Festival." Thomas was pleased for his friend. "That's because you're the only steam tram on Sodor. Everyone will cheer for you." Thomas puffed quickly away. The Fat Controller was waiting for him at Great Waterton. He had 3 important jobs to do. Thomas raced into Great Waterton, fizzling fireboxes. Waiting on the rails was another steam tram. "Thomas, this is Flora. She's the new steam tram on Sodor." Flora smiled her sunniest smile. "Hello, Thomas." Hello. "Flora is to lead the parade with Toby." Thomas gasped. "Take Flora to meet Toby. Then Toby must bring Flora back here for the parade." Thomas was worried. "Toby thinks he's leading the parade all by himself," thought Thomas. "Now he will be very upset. I must keep Flora away from Toby until after the parade." Thomas and Flora arrived at the junction. Suddenly, an idea flew into Thomas's funnel. "I will take Flora to do one of my jobs before we go to Arlesdale End," he chuffed to himself. "By then, Toby will have left to lead the parade." "Let's go to the woodyard first. It won't take long." "That sounds exciting." So they raced away to the woodyard. Thomas collected a flatbed of heavy logs. "Now we can meet Toby." Flora was pleased. "Hooray!" she peeped prettily. They set off. "Toby, Toby, you must go. Hurry now to lead the show," Thomas puffed to himself. Flora and Thomas waited at the junction to Toby's shed. It looked empty. "Come on, Flora." Flora pumped her pistons perkily. Suddenly, Thomas saw steam coming from Toby's shed. Cinders and ashes, he thought. Toby's still there. Toby mustn't see Flora. "Flora, I've just remembered. We must go to the quarry first." Flora was surprised. "If you say so, Thomas." And they puffed away. At the shunting yard, Thomas was coupled up to the stone trucks. "Now we can meet Toby." That made Flora very happy. "Toby, Toby, please have gone. Lead the show, be proud and strong," Thomas puffed to himself. Thomas and Flora arrived at Arlesdale End. This time, Thomas was sure Toby's shed was empty. "Come on, Flora." "Oh, no," thought Thomas. "Toby's still there. Toby mustn't see Flora." "Flora, we're late to pick up my load. We must go to the docks." "If you say so, Thomas." And they puffed quickly away. At the docks, Thomas was coupled up to his large load to take to Great Waterton. Thomas was sure Toby would now be leading the parade. "Come on, Flora." Flora's axles ached, but Thomas steamed strongly. Thomas and Flora puffed up to the junction. Then there was trouble. Flora had chuffed too far. She had run out of coal. "I'm sorry, Thomas." Flora's wheels wobbled weakly. Thomas felt bad. He knew it was his fault. Then he heard a chuff and a puff and a ring of a bell. It was Toby. "Thomas, I've been waiting for you." Who's that?" "Cinders and ashes." Toby had met Flora. Neither of them was at the parade. The fat controller would be very cross. Thomas couldn't have felt worse. "Flora, this is Toby. Toby, this is Flora." Toby looked very happy. Thomas was surprised. "I wanted to tell you, Thomas, that I was too scared to lead the parade all by myself, but now Flora and I can lead it together." "I thought I knew what you wanted, Toby, but I was wrong." Now Thomas had to quickly put right his mistake. "Flora, take my coal. I'll pick up more. Puff as fast as you can to Great Waterton." Toby and Flora soon puffed away. Later, Thomas chuffed into Great Waterton. The parade was ready to leave. Thomas's flatbed was uncovered. Flora gasped. She had a wonderful new tram car. Toby was pleased. Thomas watched his two friends lead the first Great Waterton parade. The children cheered. The brass band boomed. "Now I have another best friend, and she's a steam tram too." And Thomas smiled his happy. The island of Sodor is surrounded by beautiful blue sea. It has fields of green and sandy yellow beaches. There are rivers, streams, and lots of trees where the birds sing. There are windmills and a coal mine and docks where visitors to the island arrive. The island also has lots and lots of railway lines. Who's that puffing down the track? It's Thomas. Hello, Thomas.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Island of Sodor.
Thomas and the Billboard. Knapford is the biggest station on the island of Sodor. All the engines love its bustling busyness. Today was a very special day. It was Knapford Station's birthday and there was going to be a grand party. All the engines were very excited. They were to have their photograph taken. The photograph was going to be put up on a billboard. Thomas felt very proud.
I've never been on a billboard before.
But the photographer was having trouble fitting all the engines into the photograph.
Move back a bit there, James. And you forward, Percy. Yes, that's good, that's good. Now, Diesel, can you move in?
Diesel moved in. The camera flashed. Thomas didn't know that Diesel had rolled right in front of him. And neither did Diesel. Later that day, Thomas puffed into Marron Station to pick up the new billboard. He was very excited. But when Thomas saw it, he was very disappointed.
Diesel's right in front of me, Thomas thought sadly. No one can see me at all.
Thomas puffed towards Knapford.
Diesel moved in front of me on purpose,
huffed Thomas to himself. Thomas felt cross. He wasn't looking where he was going. Then there was trouble. There was a cow on the line. Thomas turned quickly into a siding just in time. He hit the buffers and the billboard flew into the lake. Thomas went to tell the photographer what had happened. "Don't worry, I'll take another photograph. Tell all the engines to meet me at Tidmouth Sheds." Thomas was about to set off. Then he saw Diesel. Thomas knew he should tell Diesel about the new photograph, but Thomas was worried. What if Diesel spoils this one too, thought Thomas. So Thomas didn't tell Diesel. Soon all the engines except Diesel were back at Tidmouth. Gordon was cross.
Mr. Giggles, the famous clown, is coming to the party tonight. I must collect him from the airport. I must not be late. And I have to pick up the brass band from Brendam Docks. And I have to collect the bunting and decorations from Wellsworth. OK, I'll fetch the photographer right away.
Thomas was steaming to Marron. Then he saw Diesel. Diesel was puffing straight to Tidmouth. Thomas was worried. Now Diesel would find out about the new photograph. So Thomas turned onto a branch line and he raced back to Tidmouth.
There's been a mistake. You'll all have to come back later.
The engines were very cross. Soon they had all gone, and Diesel trundled straight by. Later, Thomas had gathered the engines again. Then Thomas went to Marron to collect the photographer. Just as the photographer was climbing on board, Thomas saw Diesel. Now Diesel would see the photographer and he would find out about the new photograph. So Thomas wheeshed lots of steam. It billowed from his boiler and filled the whole station. So Diesel didn't see the photographer and he trundled straight by.
The steam has made my camera wet. I'm sorry, sir. We'll have to wait for it to dry. Tell the engines to come back later to Tidmouth.
So all the engines came back later, instead of doing their jobs. At last the photographer was ready. No one had noticed Diesel wasn't there. Thomas was very relieved. But just then, Diesel oiled round the bend. Diesel was surprised to see all the engines. He screeched to a halt. Rolls of bunting went everywhere.
No one told me there was another photograph. But I asked Thomas to tell everyone.
All the engines looked at Thomas. Thomas felt terrible. The fat controller was very cross. Gordon, you were meant to pick up Mr. Giggles, the famous clown. Emily, you were meant to pick up the brass band. And James, you were meant to pick up the bunting and decorations. None of you arrived, so Diesel had to do all your jobs. And now he is late to do his own work. Thomas was very upset.
It's all my fault, sir. I didn't want Diesel to know about the new photograph. In the last one, he moved right in front of me, on purpose. I did not. The photographer told me to move. I did. Perhaps you rolled too far.
Thomas knew then he'd made a mistake.
I'm sorry, Diesel. I was wrong to think you did it on purpose. And I'm very sorry for causing all this trouble, sir.
Soon all the engines were lined up. The new photograph was taken.
Sir, if I do all Diesel's jobs, can he collect the new billboard?
That's a wonderful idea, Thomas. Diesel agreed. For the rest of the day, Thomas worked hard. He did all Diesel's jobs. And Diesel picked up the new billboard, just in time for the celebrations. It was a wonderful party. There were clowns and a brass band. Diesel and Thomas agreed that the new billboard was the best billboard they'd ever seen. James works it out. James is a bright red engine. He always likes to look his best, to do his best, and to show other engines he knows best too. It was winter on the Island of Sodor. Thomas, Stanley and James were working at the yards. They were shunting trains to take to Great Waterton. They had to arrive on time. Stanley watched James shunting his trucks. They wiggled and giggled. James quickly biffed and bashed his trucks into line.
You're the best biffer I've ever seen.
Hey, that was nothing. See how easily I can shunt heavy Hector? James collected Hector. Stanley watched as James shunted Hector to the back of his train. Snow started to fall.
I'm ready to leave. I'll see you both at Great Waterton.
It's starting to snow, James. You should check the weather with the yard manager. James didn't want to be told what to do by a truck, especially in front of Thomas and Stanley.
I'll decide what we do. The weather doesn't bother me.
So James buffered up to his train and steamed slowly out of the yards. James puffed through the countryside. The snow was getting heavier. James stopped at a signal. Harold swooshed in.
There's bad weather all over the island. It's very hard to see the tracks.
Then we better go through Henry's tunnel. James sniffed. He didn't want to be told what to do by a truck, especially in front of Harold.
I'll decide what we do. We'll take the track through Shen Valley. It's the quickest way.
The signal changed and James puffed away, pushing his train. James arrived at the Shen Valley Junction. Now the snow was very thick. It made it hard for James to see ahead. James puffed on to the wrong track. James thought he was steaming through Shen Valley, but he wasn't. He was steaming towards the snowy hills. James saw Edward in a siding. He was wearing his snowplough.
The ice has made the line ahead very slippery. It will be hard to shunt your train up the hill.
James was surprised he was in the hills. I must have taken the wrong track, he thought.
I've had to clear snow from lots of lines.
James was worried. We need Edward's help. He could couple up to the front of the train. But James didn't want to be told what to do by a truck, especially in front of Edward.
I'll decide what we do. I can manage on my own.
So James puffed slowly towards the hill. James huffed and puffed. He steamed and strained. His face was now as red as his boiler. James arrived at the top of the hill. He was very pleased.
Now I can puff fast down the other side,
he thought. Then there was trouble. Hector could see a snowslide had blocked the line. Hector knew that if James slowed down at the bottom, they would get stuck in the drift.
Onwards, onwards, don't slow down.
But James didn't want to be told what to do, especially by a truck.
I'll decide what we do,
he huffed to himself. So James applied his brakes. The train smashed straight into the snow, and it stuck. James couldn't make his delivery. He felt very bad.
James is silly, James is slow, James has got us stuck in snow.
James wished he had checked with the yard manager about the weather. He wished he hadn't tried to find his way through Shen Valley, and he wished he had asked Edward to be his front engine.
Now I know Hector was trying to help me.
The trucks giggled.
Quiet! Please, Hector, how can I deliver my train on time?
Hector was happy to help. I'm a very heavy truck. We must race down the hill at full speed, then we will biff the train right through the snow.
What a good idea!
So Hector was uncoupled from the train. James wished and wheezed. At last, he had hauled Hector back to the top of the hill.
Go, James, go!
Hector and James raced faster and faster down the hill. There was a mighty biff, and Hector pushed the train right through the snow.
We did it! Well done, Hector!
Hector was pleased. Thomas and Stanley were already at Great Waterton. James, Hector and the train arrived.
You made it. We were worried. I wasn't worried. Hector helped me all the way.
Thomas and Stanley looked surprised.
You can always rely on a good truck.
Hector was happy to be a good truck, and James was happy to have a new friend. Gordon takes a shortcut. Gordon is a very proud engine. He likes to do important jobs. Gordon thinks he knows the Sodor Railway better than anyone. Gordon was at Knapford Station waiting for Stanley. Stanley was late. Gordon had to take Stanley's passengers on to Brendam Docks. At last, Stanley puffed in.
Oh, I'm sorry I'm late. I took a shortcut, but I got lost. I never get lost. I know the railway better than any other engine.
Some very important passengers and a group of workmen are waiting at Great Waterton. The first engine to arrive will pick up the very important passengers. The second will collect the workmen. Gordon didn't want to pick up the workmen. He wanted to pick up the very important passengers.
I've got to get coal and water. See you at Great Waterton, Gordon.
And Stanley chuffed cheerily away. Gordon was determined to arrive at Great Waterton first, so he raced off to Brendam Docks. Gordon delivered Stanley's passengers and puffed away to Great Waterton as quickly as his boiler could bubble. Gordon puffed up to a junction. He could see Stanley ahead. Gordon was worried. Then he had an idea.
If I take a shortcut, he huffed to himself, I will arrive at Great Waterton before Stanley, and I won't get lost.
So Gordon took the other track. Gordon steamed happily along his shortcut. He stopped at the signal. Duck was having a washdown. Duck was surprised to see Gordon so far from the express track.
Are you lost? Would you like some help?
No, thank you. I'm not lost. And Gordon chuffed away. Gordon steamed further along his shortcut. I should be at Great Waterton by now, he thought. Gordon puffed around a bend. Ahead, there was a bridge.
Hooray! That must be the Great Waterton Bridge.
But under the bridge, it wasn't Great Waterton. It was a repair yard. Gordon saw Oliver and Toad. They were having their wheels oiled. They were surprised to see Gordon so far from the express track.
Are you lost?
Would you like some help? No, thank you, I'm not lost. And Gordon chuffed quickly away. Gordon steamed along. Now he was more worried. His shortcut was taking longer and longer. Then he saw another bridge. Hooray! Here's the Great Waterton Bridge. But under the bridge, it wasn't Great Waterton. It was the shunting yard of a logging station. Gordon had never been here before. Then in the distance, he heard Stanley's whistle from the track below. Stanley is catching up, he huffed to himself. I must race ahead. Gordon pumped his pistons. Then there was trouble. Ben was shunting a flatbed of logs. Gordon biffed straight into them. The logs started to roll down the hill. Bust my buffers, those logs will block the lower track. I must stop Stanley. But Gordon didn't know which track to take. Gordon was lost. What have you done? Gordon knew his shortcut hadn't worked. Now he needed to ask for help. Can you help me, Ben? I have to get to the lower track as fast as possible. Of course. Ben was happy to help. Soon the track was clear, and Gordon steamed away. He had to warn Stanley. Then Gordon arrived at a fork in the track. He didn't know which way to go next. Gordon saw Oliver and Toad puffing toward him. Please, stop! I'm lost. I need to get to the lower track as quickly as possible. Oliver was happy to help. Take the left track. And Gordon raced on. Gordon arrived at another fork in the track. He didn't know which way to go. Then he saw Duck chuffing over a bridge. Please stop! I'm lost and I'm in a hurry. Duck was happy to help. You must take the track on the right. Thank you. And Gordon steamed off. At last, Gordon puffed on to the lower track. He could see the logs had fallen across Stanley's line. Then he saw Stanley chuffing round a bend. Gordon blew his whistle long and loud. Stop, Stanley! Stop! Stanley applied his brakes and screeched to a halt just in front of the logs. Soon Rocky arrived. He cleared the logs in no time. I'm sorry, Stanley. This was all my fault. I wanted to take a shortcut. I wanted to pick up the very important passengers. But now I want you to collect them. Stanley was delighted. Later, the very important passengers were all on board Stanley's carriages. Stanley felt very proud. Gordon puffed in to collect the workmen. I won't be taking any shortcuts this time. Stanley laughed, and Gordon smiled at his new friend.